Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Lynn Wire, award-winning author of Steamy Small Town and Spicy Dark Romance, and your host for this episode of Here for the Romance. I'm so excited to chat today with author Renee Regent, aka Leslie Crowne. Renee is a multifaceted author who writes sizzling contemporary romance as Renee Regent and enchantingly spicy fantasy romance as Leslie Crowne. Renee/Leslie writes with heart, heat, and sensual details that bring a realistic feel to her stories, and readers can expect layered plots, unexpected twists, and epic romances in both genres. In the real world, she lives in Ringgold, Georgia, with her husband, three cats, and a turtle named Myrtle, who rules the house. She's an avid reader and so grateful to live a life centered around books. Renee, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
For readers who are not familiar with your work, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your books? Because you do write in two pen names.
Yes, I do. I've been writing for almost 10 years under Renee Regent, mostly contemporary romance. And then in 23, I started with the pen name Leslie Crowne doing fantasy romance, mainly fairy tale retelling. So I have, I think, 15 books out published now, mostly on Amazon. And I'm having a great time with it.
So how was that? I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. How was that shift going from one genre to the other? Was it an easy shift for you to do, or was it something that you had to think about and go, well, do I want to keep this in this pen name, or do I want to start this new pen name for this new genre?
Yeah, well, I I agonized about it for about 2 years. I think I tend to overthink things. I don't know, maybe a lot of authors can relate to that because, we've got so many things to think about. And being an independent publisher, you have so much on your plate all the time. And so I was really nervous about doing that, but I kept feeling like that the fantasy and the romantasy needed to be its own brand. And so I finally just took the plunge and did because I had started writing my fairy tale retellings. And it wasn't as bad as I thought. I was able to keep a few things together, like my website and my newsletter. I do jointly with both names. So that wasn't too much work. And I did have to set up multiple social media things, but I've used some PAs and like I said, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, it was going to be. So I wish I'd done
Oh,
it sooner.
yeah, unfortunately, I didn't change very much between my pen names. Jenny Lynn Wire, and then I did JL Wire. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even create any of that. So you must have, to juggle two, author personas. Um, I mean, how do you pick like what you want to write as which pen name, or do you just kind of let the stories flow out of your head? And if you're in the mood for contemporary, you write that. If you're in the mood for romantasy, you write that one.
I'm sorry, what the question is about writing or is it about marketing?
About writing. So,
Okay.
how difficult is it for you to transition from one to the other because they are such different genres?
Now that I've written 4 books under Leslie Crowne, it's not difficult, but at first it was, and I kind of Renee had already had like full 2 full series, and she was at a kind of a stopping point
Mhm.
anyway, so she didn't have any new releases or anything. So I switched kind of over to focus on to Leslie Crowne, and now that I've done that, I've gone back and written a novella for Renee, and so it at first it was like a sort of a new genre, and I had to kind of find that voice of Renee of Leslie Crowne, and because it was a different fantasy, it was a totally different kind of atmosphere. But once I got used to it after the second, third book, I think it was a lot easier. And now I'm sure I could switch back and forth easily depending on whatever book is speaking to me or whatever book is up. I mean, because I've got lots of stories I want to write. I've just got to figure out like what I feel like writing plus what marketing makes sense.
Yeah, because romantasy is very big right
Mhm.
now. And so how are you liking, because it's exploded. Um,
Yeah, it is. And fairy tale retellings are a sort of a niche within that.
hmm.
So it's not the typical, it's not like ACOTAR or anything. It's not a big fantasy thing, but it's a little more. They're not really dark. They have some darkish elements, but they're mostly lighthearted. And I've had to work a little bit to find the readers for that niche, but they're out there, and they do very well. The covers are really. I got lucky and got really good covers this time that are right on. And when I do book signings, they immediately draw people to the table and they want to ask about them. So my focus has mostly been on Leslie Crowne and the fairy tale books the last few years, a little bit more because, like I said, it is popular and it's attracting readers.
Yeah. So for authors who are thinking, because I get this a lot in my author chat groups, authors wondering about whether to switch to, to have a different pen name. So for authors who are kind of on the fence about that, do you have any advice for them about, when to do a new pen name? And was it an easy switch for you, or how hard, would it be to do that?
I think the important thing is to know why you're doing it. Like I said, for me, it was more of a marketing and branding decision. Some authors can write many different genres under one pen name, and that's fine. And maybe they have a following already that follows them through whatever, and so for them it wouldn't be an issue. Um, and if you're, and my two genres are kind of adjacent. I mean, they're still romance, but they're adjacent. So I thought they were adjacent enough to warrant, somewhat separate um, readership. Although I have readers that have read, both and will read pretty much anything I write.
Yeah.
But if you were writing, say, erotica and children's books, yes, you absolutely want a different pen name, or nonfiction and fiction, you want different pen names. But when they're adjacent like that, you just have to kind of do your own analysis and see,
Yeah.
if it's necessary for you or not. I felt at that point in my career that it was a good move to do that, and for algorithms, for also bots on Amazon, for just readers who are, like you said, more into the romantasy. I wanted to catch them. And so I didn't want them getting confused with my contemporary. So I think they just have to, decide why you want to do it and then go forward.
You made a really good point about the algorithm. Um, so, because, once you start publishing, that algorithm picks up what you've done. And so
Mm-hmm.
then to switch to something else, so small town versus romantasy, that would be a switch to the algorithm and it would confuse it. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
So what do you love most about each genre? Because, something had to have, you know, made you focus on those two? Is it something that you love to read and therefore love to write, or was it just the stories that really captivated you between contemporary and romantasy for you to write both of them?
Um, I'm a pretty eclectic reader. As far as reading, music, food, anything, I'm very eclectic. So I
Mm.
go around for different things. I wasn't really honed in on one particular genre when I started getting serious about, publishing. But romance has always been one of my favorites, and so I started out with that. My actual first trilogy that I wrote was supernatural romantic suspense is what I'm calling it. But it was like, I'm just going to write what I want to write and then worry about figuring out where it goes later, figure out how to market it later. And that was just because I was new to publishing and didn't really understand much about it, but I really wanted to write. So my first trilogy, Higher Elevation series, was has psychics in it and dangerous experiments, and has spice and everything in it, but it's all a lot of more metaphysical stuff and a romance. So I was really proud to get that out, and it's got good reviews, and it still sells to this day. But then I was like, okay, I think I need to be a little more focused on the next
Yeah.
books that I write. So I said I'll just write romance because I still was reading a lot of that. And so I started the Love Grows series, and I wrote 5 books in that series, and they have a lot of the popular romance tropes. I didn't set out to say I'm going to write this trope, but the tropes just naturally came in into the story when as I wrote them with the relationship of the two of the couples getting together. But I also was reading a lot of romantasy and fantasy, and it's been one of my loves for a long time. I love the world building and all the intricate things and the historical aspect because it's usually set an old world type of
Yeah, that's
environment.
something I'm going to ask you about in a second is about the world building.
So I really wanted to write something like that, and I started with the fairy tales because those are kind of the first romantasy stories that I ever learned when I was a kid. Right, is fairy tales. We always those are kind of what we cut our teeth on. So I said, okay, well, I can take Cinderella and twist it, and Beauty and the Beast and twist it, and that's what I did. I have Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Puss in Boots, and Red Riding Hood. Those four
Puss
books
in
that I
Boots.
yes, yes. So it just kind of evolved because okay, I've conquered romance. Now let me try fantasy.
Yeah, you made actually another good point about writing what you wanted to read, and I think that's how a lot of indie authors start out because I know I did. Um, you want to there's like a specific story that as a reader of romance you want, and then you start writing that, and I love how a lot of us got started out that way.
Yes. Yes, I think most authors are pretty voracious readers, and that's
Mhm.
our love of stories is what gets us towards, to do that. So,
Yeah, I think before, so for the past couple of years, I haven't been able to read as much, but before that, um, every year I would do how many books I read, and I would read like 340 books a year. So basically one a day. And I know a lot of people go, how in the world could you do that? Well, I couldn't take my eyes off the pages, and so I would stay up late at night and read it. Were you like that to,
no,
you would
I've
just,
never read that fast or that much, but I may not always have a book or two going. I
yeah.
sometimes I read two, three books at the same time, just I'm a mood reader, and I don't read that fast. And especially now that I've got an author with two pen names, I really don't read as much as I'd like to. And
Yeah.
sometimes I still want to read an occasional nonfiction book about a topic I'm interested in too. So it's spread pretty thin, but I keep at it. I keep reading. I keep writing almost every day, one of the two.
So, is there one thing your readers would be shocked to know about you if they, because every author has like this little quirk.
I wouldn't say shocked, but maybe surprised to know that I've always been an entrepreneur. I have owned multiple businesses, successful businesses. And before that, I was kind of high in corporate for a long time. So I've, always been like this business woman persona. And, but in my heart, I've always been the creative. Before I got into business, I was very creative. I was singing and painting and drawing and writing and I was doing all those things and also into a lot of metaphysical stuff and stuff. So that persona that I'm living now is very different from my business life. And I eventually sold all my businesses and now I get to write full time and I get to be metaphysical and I get to be creative and I get to be all these fun things that I want to do. So
Then you
it's
have that business background, that because I always tell whenever new authors ask me for advice, I'm like, it's 90% marketing and social media with the 10 billion social media platforms that we have to do, and then 10% writing.
yeah, exactly. The writing's the fun part. Everything else is the work.
Oh, it does. It takes up a lot of time. So speaking of reading, what was the very first romance book you ever read that really just sucked you in and you were like, this is my jam?
Yeah, I'm gonna go real old school here on it, and it was "The Flame and the Flower" by Kathleen Woodwis, and that she was very. It was one of those bodice rippers in the '80s. I mean, you can see I've got
Oh,
a
yeah.
painting in the background here. Um, and I read it probably in the late 1980s or early 90s. A friend gave it to me, and I read it, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so fun!" This is so. It was historical, and it was sweeping, and it was, like I said, the swoony type of romance. And I never thought I would read that, but I just got hooked, and so I read everything in that series. Then okay, what else? What else? What else? What else? I went to Kat Martin, and then Karen Marie Moning got me into, she was doing all those Scotland ones, the stories that she used to do, taking place in Scotland and time travel. And I mean, I just kind of went on from there.
It's interesting too because like Judith McNaught's old historical
Mm-hmm.
romances. Huge fan. I think I've read each of them 100 times over. They're like my rereads. But it's interesting to see how the romance genre has changed since that time because everything back then was historical
Right.
romance, and now, I mean, there are just so many subgenres, microtropes, niches. I mean, it's fascinating to see how our industry has changed in
Yes.
a very short amount of time.
Yes. I think the internet has helped a lot with that because now we're
Yeah.
exposed to so much. I mean, you can look, but before you had to go to the bookstore and kind of look, and this, they weren't facing out. You had to look at the spine and look at the title, and it took a long time to pick those one or two that you were going to, buy and leave. But now, you can download free books and all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff constantly. So yeah, it's definitely exploded.
So let's delve a little bit into your books. Which book of yours do you wish readers would take a chance on and why? So how about we do it too? So which one of your
Sure.
contemporary and which one of your romantasy?
Okay. I'm going to talk about the fantasy romance first because
Okay.
that was immediately what came to mind when I saw that question. I wish they would take a chance on Cat's Bloom. That's the Puss in Boots retell, because I know when I'm at a table at the a book fair and people come up and I tell them about it and they go Puss in Boots, ooh, and they sound interested, but then they don't pick it up. They pick up the Beauty and the Beast or the Cinderella, the one they're more familiar with, and it really turned out to be a very good story. It was fun. It was kind of difficult to write because it turned out to be very layered with a lot of twists and a mystery to solve, and then this slow burn between the main characters that was really a slow build, but boy, when it got together, it was like explosive. And then we had a talking cat with all these snarking, funny lines, and he kind of helped save the day and everything. And it's a really fun story, but there's some, intense moments in there too. It's a monster to fight. I mean, there's just all this stuff going on. So I wish more people would take a chance on it because the other three sell slightly better than that one,
Yeah.
and I think people are missing out if they don't read it. And like I said, Puss in Boots is not that common. So I think it was fun to make a good twist on that one. For the contemporary side, um, the fifth book in the Love Go series is called So Right, and I wish they'd take a chance on that. It's a reverse age gap, so she's older than him.
Love
She's
reverse age gap.
she's 10 years older than him, and it's a fake fiance. Their boss, they work in an office, and their boss wants them to pose as a engaged couple to um, check out this investigate inn that he wants to buy that specializes in weddings, and he wants to get into that business, and so he wants them to pretend to be potential wedding guest, have their wedding there. And so, but she doesn't like him at first. Of course, he's the young hotshot, and she's the executive assistant, and 10 years older than him. And but boy, they end up getting together, and it's a little slightly autobiographical because my husband's 10 years old younger than me, and when
Oh.
we first met, I had some reservations, some doubts about how the relationship was going to work, and so I touched on that in the story. And also, the male main character is from a Greek family. And so, if you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the
Yeah.
family is very similar to that. And my first husband had
Does that include all the chaos?
yeah, my
Yes.
first husband, I grew up with that kind of a family because my first husband I was married to for many years, he passed on, but his family was from the Middle East and they were very much like that. And so there's a lot of personal stuff in there, but it came out really nice. And a lot of the um, reviews really like that aspect of it, the family and the family drama and all that stuff. And so I think that's what, even though it's the fifth book of the series, they're all standalone. So you could just read that one and go back to the others if you want.
Well, I know I tell my readers a lot that when you read my books, each one, it's basically you get a snapshot of my life. And so, like you said that you pull, some aspects of your, do you do that even for your romantasy books? Do you take little aspects of your life or maybe your life experiences or maybe people you know and weave them into your story?
Absolutely. I do that pretty much with every story. Like, and I even do have a segment in my newsletter where I call it Behind the Story, and I will reveal those things to my readers and say, hey, here's a little paragraph two tidbit about, how this ended up in the story. For
Oh,
example,
cool.
in Cat's Bloom, the cat was based on a cat that my husband had when I first met him. And the cat's name was Barnaby, and he was a white cat. And so when I needed a cat for this story, I said, I'm going to use Barnaby.
Yeah.
And, and he was a kind of a vocal cat. And I was not used to cats. But when I started coming over and hanging out at my husband's apartment, Barnaby made me feel very welcome and I kind of bonded with him. So I used Barnaby in the story.
Cool. So what this is one of my kind of quirky questions I like to ask. What is an example of a crazy Google search you had to do for book research? Because I don't even want to go where my searches take me. It's
Okay, well, once again, I'm going to do the two-sided thing.
okay.
For Leslie Crowne, it medieval torture devices. I kind of went down a rabbit hole of those, and it was like frightening because they're pretty brutal back then. So that
Okay,
was
I'm
kind of,
curious now. You've
yeah.
now piqued my
And there was
interest. So
pictures and
what was one
everything.
that you found that was like you were like, ugh.
I don't even remember. I think I kind of wanted to not to forget about it because I don't know. They just disemboweling people and different devices that they would clamp onto people. I mean, it was
Okay.
crazy. Yeah.
So
And then
what
the
about
other,
contemporary?
and then for my very first trilogy on Renee Regent, the one with the psychics and the experiments and everything, it's actually set in the 1970s in the Cold War. And I had to research MK Ultra, which was government experiments that they did on people, and they were experimenting on them about psychic things and also giving them LSD and then seeing how they reacted.
Oh,
And
I
oh
remember
my
those
God, it was like
stories.
government experience, and this was like stuff that Congress had actually investigated, so it was real stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was kind of a rabbit hole of things that made you go, ooh. So those
Yeah,
are
no,
fun.
I remember those stories. Okay. So I guess we're still going to keep this twofold. Do you have a favorite scene from a book? And let's start with contemporary.
I thought I don't really have a favorite scene. I think I would say overall, my favorite scene in any of my books is the first kiss. When the couple finally, gets to that point where they kiss. I enjoy writing those and building up to it. And I enjoy reading those and other stories. So it's really hard to pull out a particular scene of any of the books. It's just like I said, I love the first kiss.
I mean, so your first book, first kiss scene.
Well, any of my books.
Oh, any of your books, the first kiss
Yeah,
scene.
the first
Okay.
kiss. Yeah. They're all
Yeah.
romances, so there's always a couple getting together, and there's always a point where it's like, they've been building up to this, and we don't like each other and everything, but now all of a sudden we got to kiss, and
Oh, no.
I try to make it, I try to
I
make it
don't care what you
really
think. It's about
good.
time. We got to kiss.
Yeah, it's just we can't deny it any longer. It's happening.
Okay. I like that. Okay, so here, this one's a toughie. Out of all your characters, who is your favorite MMC and who is your favorite FMC and why?
Okay. My favorite MMC is Gibson Colbank from Not So Broken, which is the first book of the Lovegrove series. And I made in him everything I wanted in a man, basically, and which my husband, by the way, mostly fulfills.
Hey, I was about to say, does
Yeah. I've kept him around for a while because he does pretty good.
okay, he checks
But
those
yeah, I
boxes.
mean, I just made Gibson the way I like the book boyfriend that I wanted.
Yeah.
And what he did that was unique was as I wrote the other four books in the series, he ended up popping into each book and coming over and telling the main character exactly what they needed to hear at the right time to help them solve their problem, their arc.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't plan on him doing that. He just, when you know how it is when you write, sometimes the characters just do what they want to do.
A mutiny. Yeah.
And
I talked about
he,
that when with SD Letty in the
yeah.
last.
So he showed up in every book and was pivotal and saying the right thing at the right time and giving everybody this great advice and everything. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I've really come to love him even more. And then on the Leslie Crowne side is the female that I really liked was Ruby Flores of Ruby's Heart, which is the last one. It's a Red Riding Hood retell. And from the moment I started writing, she was just so vibrant and light, full of life on the page. And she was just, I heard her voice so clearly and I saw her so well. And she just really, she was very, she's a noble woman, but she was very rebellious and she's going to do her thing and she's going to do it her way and nobody's going to tell her what to do. And then, of course, she ends up having to take on this big, um, this problem that she was not prepared for. And her and the main character, Marcel, had some excellent banter back and forth because he was trying to get her to do what she had to do and she didn't want to do it. And I mean, it was just, she was just a lot of fun to write and very, one of those times when it's very clear.
It's nice when a character, you don't have to struggle
Right.
to find their voice to write it.
Yep.
Um, all right, I want to dive into kind of just for fun
Okay.
things. I usually, in the chat with it just for fun. So finish this sentence. She hears "I love you" because have you seen these on Instagram? I get these
Mm-mm.
all the time in the feed. So
I
when
haven't.
she hears "I love you," he actually says what? Do you have a character and then?
You know, I don't know, but I think she says I love you, and he hears.
No, so he says I love you, but sorry, blah. She hears I love you, but he's actually saying something, something else.
I want to get in bed.
Okay.
I mean, knowing men, I don't know. I think a lot of I try to give my MMCs to show their love for the um, female main character by their actions, not necessarily their words. So she may hear something different, but I think he's going to prove it by what he does and how he treats her. Um, that may not
Good
answer the
answer.
question exactly, but that's what
A
came
good
to my
answer.
mind.
So if your personality was a season, which season would it be? And why do you connect yourself to that?
I'd probably say spring. I was born in the spring, so I'm pretty optimistic person. I'm always looking for the new beginning, the new renewal. Like if things go wrong and everything, I might wallow in it for a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, let's start over. It's always the renewal, the new thing going on. So I would say probably spring without the pollen.
Oh, well, do you find that with your writing that in the springtime you get that like this renewal to where you are more productive during that time, or is just that how you feel overall that you like that season?
No, I pretty productive year round. I mean, like I said, I've been in business all my life, and so I'm pretty driven. So I don't. I will say I'm more productive in the afternoons. I'm not a night owl. And I'm not a morning person, but I'm an afternoon peacock, basically, not a night owl or a early bird. So that's pretty much my rhythm. But I pretty much write and do author stuff every day, even on the weekends. So the seasons
24/7,
just flow by.
no holidays, no breaks on the
No, I mean,
weekends.
sometimes I'll take
No.
Sunday off or something with my husband if we're doing something or if we're gone somewhere. But, you know, I got to always at least be doing something.
Yeah. So who is the first fictional character that you kind of ever fell in love with? So mine from a romance, I remember reading. I cannot, for some, I don't know why I can never remember the title of this because I loved it. It was a Nora Roberts book, and I remember the main character was Finn. And
Mhm.
I absolutely just fell for this character. And then I got sucked in and I basically read every single book she's ever written. So
Uh,
was there a character like that for you in a book that you were just like, oh my, that guy?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's very easy. It's Jamie Fraser from Outlander.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you watch the series as well?
I do. I like the series, but I've read all the books and I've read the first three, I think, twice. So, and this is going back to the late early 90s, I guess, was when I started reading it. So yes, Jamie Fraser's my book by boyfriend of all time.
Yep.
Um, there's a few newer ones that I like too, but he's the king.
Yeah, yeah, okay. He's King Boy. And then is there a book trend that you wish would come back? So, because you've had a very distinguished career so far as an author, is there something that you used to have or something that used to exist before that you wish would make a comeback in the book community today?
Um, I wish there was less emphasis on negativity and more emphasis on our community and how we all love books and everything. I know that social media algorithms more or less reward controversial takes and negative takes. And I mean, I don't know. I think that too much. Hang on. Sorry. Sorry. Um, and I don't know. I like to talk fun things and why I love this book. And I see so many posts about, oh, books I hated and authors I don't like and tropes I don't like. And that's fine. It has its place, but I think sometimes there's too much emphasis on that or it gets too much attention. So I'd like to see a lot more of the positive, fun side of the community and books in general.
Yeah, and I mean that was my whole reason for actually starting this author chat podcast because I just last year the negativity got so bad in our community and I want to bring that positivity back and authors supporting authors and we're a community, we're not each other's competition. We're here to support each other and help each other rise is how I look at it.
Right. And I think a lot of authors, most authors just they want to serve the readers. They want to give the readers what they want, not just to make money, but because that's what we do.
Yeah.
You know, we bring stories to life and we want to find the people that enjoy those stories and we want them to enjoy them. And it could be a very good symbiosis, but a lot of negativity on both sides gets in the way. And I just like to see less of that.
And uh, I ditto yours, and I would also like the little Instagram square to come back.
Oh,
I liked my little profile with all the nice little perfect squares and not the long rectangles.
yeah. So I don't know. One thing I thought it was like mass market paperbacks, the smaller ones that you can just throw in your purse or your bag and take it with you. I know we have Kindles. I know we can read on our phone, but sometimes you just want a paperback. And some of them have gotten so large
Yeah.
so physically that would be nice. And they were cheaper too.
True, true, they are. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. You can find Renee/Leslie's books on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. I'm going to provide links to her website and a few of her most recent releases that I'll put in the description box below. But until then, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, thank you.
Been fun chatting
And
with you.
until next time, everybody, happy reading.